Welcome to The Author Show, where we feature new authors and books, from fiction to self-help and everything in between. You'll find it all at theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. And now let the show begin.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Don McCauley. Today we're welcoming program author Gary Cosmaraz, and he is the author of Hoka, Legend of Tala Whitecloud. Gary, how are you?
Very good. Glad to be here, Don.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, I'm a moto journalist. I've been writing for decades, and I have over 200 travel stories that I've written, 3 travel books and 6 of what I call supernatural thrillers. And that's what we're going to talk about today, my newest one.
So tell us about the book.
It's called Hoka, The Legend of Tala Whitecloud. And Hoka is a ghost story that becomes a futuristic tale about unity. My supernatural thrillers are what I call faction. It's an intriguing mix of fact and fiction. Hoka is a what-if about the current state of the Native American nation. For example, fact, the collective geographical area of all American Indian reservations represents 2.3% of the U.S. and 10% of Alaska. Fact, the Council Energy Resource Tribes estimate the value of these resources at $1.5 trillion. That's 1.5 million billions. Fact, $30 billion is generated by Indian gaming revenues and an additional $15 billion by land and oil leases annually. So this supernatural thriller underscores this current strife of American Indians who defend their sacred rights against corporate greed and the corruption of big oil. But here's the story. So imagine a world where all Native Americans stood together as one tribe with one voice. And there are insidious reasons that Indian nations are kept silent, and the government has intentionally fractured tribal communities. So big oil desecrates sacred Indian burial grounds for drilling and fracking, and they're willing to disturb the dead to get it. Tala Whitecloud, the story's heroine, becomes possessed by an army of Shoshone Indian spirits. She's given special knowledge and special power. Her mission is to unify a Native American nation. Tala holds the key. It's a force so powerful and a revelation so shocking it forever alters mankind's destiny.
So who did you write your book for specifically?
Originally, my stories were targeted for adventure writers who owned motorcycles, but as my genre evolved, so has my readership. And I've always loved mysteries, action, adventures steeped in foreign intrigue. So to your question, I wrote Hoka for those interested in taking an enigmatic adventure steeped in mystery and suspense while surprising readers with a twist of magic and insight. My readers often express that my stories should be a movie or a television series, and to me, that's a huge compliment.
Is there a minimum reading age in the book, in your opinion?
No, not at all. Not at all. This applies to young people, anywhere from teens to the 90s.
Now, could you say there's any type of central message or perhaps underlying theme that you could say runs throughout the book?
Yes, there absolutely is. In Hoka, Legend of Tala Whitecloud, it's that the human spirit is indomitable, that we are guided by mystical forces, and if we learn to listen to the divine, we'll not only find our own individual path in life, we'll move towards one world spirit and a greater destiny.
If you had to choose, what would you say is the single most important idea you're sharing in your book that's really going to add value to the reader's life?
Words are magic, thoughts become reality, and the future belongs to dreamers.
If you could compare your book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
A Legend of Tala Whitecloud it's a mix of Laura Croft meets the Da Vinci Code. I mean, it definitely lives in the thriller genre, strong female characters, unraveling clandestine plots, and revealing hidden secrets with intense dramatic scenes, of course.
What's the meaning of the title?
Thank you for asking that, Don. The title comes from a historical report that Crazy Horse famously yelled this war cry to his troops in the Battle of Little Bighorn. Hoka meaning a good day to die, or something like, let's go, men, today is a good day to die. And in my story, Tala Whitecloud is dying to be heard, so to speak, and thus it's a good day to die, and this is her story.
Millions of books come out every year. Why should someone buy this book, in your opinion?
Well, as I mentioned, it's a supernatural thriller, a hot cocktail of action and adventure, but first and foremost, all my Tales of the Midnight Rider books have strong female characters. In real life, I was raised by a Wiccan priestess and surrounded by a coven of priestesses, and at a very impressionable age. And while I take the masculine first-person approach to writing the adventures of the protagonist, Zach King, the attributes of mysticism, power, and femininity are embodied in many of my characters and storylines. And secondly, I include how these characters navigate through dangerous and uncharted waters, all with an underlying message of expanded awareness and knowledge. And I don't want to recycle Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, but it is the stuff of great storytelling.
You said you were raised by a Wiccan priestess. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, my mother held a double master's in religion and published a magazine called Occult Americana, and my father owned a nightclub called the Zombie Club. So as an impressionable youth, I was surrounded by witches and beatniks and hippie chicks, and we had a cabin in Vermont where her coven would gather. And it was there I was exposed to psychedelics, metaphysics, and motorcycles at 13, and travel and adventure became my mantra.
So travel's a big part of your writing. Where have you been?
I've traveled almost every continent on the earth, but Bali to me is the most inspiring place on earth, and I'm planning a trip there again this year. And I've motorcycled both Bali and Java, and actually the Borobudur Temple is my last trip, and that's featured in my new book, travel book called Temple Tours on Two Wheels. I'm planning trips to South America, Peru, and the Lost City in Colombia, but on the immediate agenda, I'm going to see the total eclipse of the sun here in August in Idaho.
So what's the primary benefit above all others that potential readers will gain from this book?
Well, because of our information overload society, I've designed these books to be novellas, 60 to 90 pages long, a pleasant 2-hour read. This modern society is filled with distractions. Most people don't have the time or energy to commit to long novels, and we all want something wildly entertaining, mildly informative, and subtly philosophical, and Tales of the Midnight Rider series are just that. You can download them on your Kindle or iPhone, read them with your evening cocktail, take a few ineffable notions to work the next day, rinse and repeat.
So what can you tell us about your genre and why you prefer to write in that genre?
Well, the supernatural is a world of unlimited possibilities, yet it's not fantasy. It's a rich tapestry of religion, mysticism, superpowers, and future science. And who doesn't love a good thriller?
So what's been your most rewarding experience since publishing your book?
Well, I've had people tell me that they've literally followed the roots of my travel stories, or a story inspired them to visit a place or take a journey they otherwise wouldn't have. That's rewarding. And now with my supernatural thriller series, I'm doing the same thing, only they never have to leave home.
So how would you describe your writing style?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me this, Don. And so my writing style, ? Imagine Stephen King, Penn and Teller, and the Dalai Lama are hiking the Himalayas. The day starts out dark and foreboding. Then, by a mysterious twist of fate and a crafty bit of magic, they find themselves in a plot of intrigue and otherworldly dimensions. Add a layer of Eastern wisdom, and their hard-fought journey lands them on a mountaintop with a cold beer and a grand view. My writing style is sometimes borderline science fiction, but it is in no way dystopian.
Who or what would you say influenced your writing the most?
What's always amazed me are the ingredients that fill the cauldron of creativity. For me, it all happened in my formative years. Literarily, Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland, and Arthur C. Clarke, 2001 Space Odyssey. Musically, Pink Floyd and Miles Davis. Artistically, Salvador Dali and M.C. Escher. Personally, obviously, my mother and my father. And gastronomically, my Czech grandmother who grew her own poppies and made a wicked poppy seed cake.
So based on your experience as a writer, what's the one recommendation you would make to authors just starting out?
Well, I actually never planned to be a published writer. My degrees are in technology and metaphysics. But the thing is, I've always written, ever since I was a child. Poetry, music, lyrics, dream journals, and I write incessantly. So when it comes to this question, I always quote Stephen King on this subject, because when he was asked how to become a writer, he said, you become a writer simply by reading and writing a lot. And the most valuable lessons of all are the ones you teach yourself. He also said that writing isn't about making money or getting famous or getting friends. Writing is magic. And as much as the water of life is magic, like any other creative art, the water's free, so drink. Stephen King has a book called On Writing, Memoirs of the Craft. I suggest reading that. And yes, there's a reason my protagonist is named Zachary King.
Now, are your characters pure fiction, or do you draw from people you know in real life?
Well, traveling is the magic formula that opens the Pandora's box of characters. And yes, my characters are absolutely drawn from people I meet and know. Some actually are the characters in my books. The Native American Indian character in Hoka, for example, is a Cree Indian medicine man I met in Sedona. And we rode around the desert on motorcycles, and he took me to places that only Native Indians can traverse. And parts of that story are literally experiences we had in Sedona. And he's been a consultant for this book. And as I mentioned before, the pervasive, strong female qualities of the heroine, Tala Whitecloud, are direct distillations from past and present women in my life.
Now, if you had to choose, would you say you're more of a character artist or more a plot-driven writer?
Well, I understand that readers have to care about the characters. They have to resonate with their personalities and even fall in love with them. But I would have to say my supernatural thrillers are plot-driven. My characters are on the move, following the action and the ever-developing plot.
Other than selling your book, of course, is there anything else you hope to accomplish with it?
Well, I get comments all the time that my Tales of the Midnight Rider series should be movies or TV shows, and I have 6 of these. Midnight Rider on a Graveyard Run, Thundertaker, Unity 7, Neptune's Net, The Red Room, and then Hoka Hey. I do have an agent pitching my books, and that's my personal dream, to see one of my books turned into a screenplay and ultimately a movie. We're all writing the storyline of our lives. Everyone's gifted with unlimited possibilities to create a meaningful life, and I've chosen my inner muse and let her take me to places beyond my scope of reality. And interesting, the more I write these adventures, the more adventurous my life becomes with the synchronicities and the wild cast of characters I meet that help me evolve as a human being.
In your opinion, who should buy this book?
I write for people who are interested in adventure and in mystery and suspense, and people who want some magic in their life. And really, the age group can be young teenagers to 90-year-olds. It's really an insight and adventure into your own life.
Do you have a website?
I do. It's Cosmodo.com, and that's Kozmoto.com, so Cosmodo.com.
Could you spell your name for us, please?
Yeah, it's Gary, Gary, middle name Koz, last name Mraz. And you can Google search that name, and you'll find a lot of my writing. I'm easily found on the internet.
Well, this has been just great. Our guest today has been Gary Cosmaraz, and he is the author of Hoka Hey, Legend of Tala Whitecloud. Gary, thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Don. And I must say, finding a smart and informative broadcast like the author show is refreshing, because as a moto journalist, I had no problem preaching to the choir, but as the Zachary King series evolves, I crossed over to a broader audience, and your shows offer authors a voice and a platform to a new audience, and that's much appreciated, so I thank you.
Well, thank you. Now, this is Don McCauley wrapping up another edition of The Author Show. Listen to some of your favorite authors every day, 24/7, by visiting theauthorshow.com. Just click on the book title in the player at the top of the page. These interviews are available to book buyers worldwide on demand. If you'd like to be a guest on the show and feel you could benefit by getting in front of your target audience with a high-quality media interview that'll make a real impact, visit theauthorshow.com, fill out the form, and we may be contacting you shortly. You can also visit our audio bookstore at theaudiobookmarket.com. Join us here next time for another great book and another exciting author on The Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. Find out more about authors and their work at theauthorshow.com. Theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.